Broadcasting from the confines of an abandoned radio station in the secluded apartment building of high strangeness from the foothills of the Colorado Rockies. It's time for full disclosure of the topics they told us were off limits. Hello there, I'm Connie Willis. This is Coast to Coast AM. Tonight, it's a how-to night. How to visit heaven and how to see aliens. Yeah, good night tonight, right? Time now to turn off the lights. Join me for another interesting evening of conversation, much needed education, and the chance that we might get a little closer to the truth of what lurks amongst us and what is beyond. I'm Connie Willis. This is Coast to Coast AM. You're listening to Coast AM. Hello there. Connie Willis with you. How are you? I was here last night, here tonight. A great weekend, a lot of fun, exciting, a lot of emails. Y'all are working me. I'm telling you, you are working me, but it's all right. It's always fun to be a part of the Coast to Coast team whenever I can. Thank you, George Norrie. Thank you. The crowd roars. Anyway, thanks so much for you being here as well. And I hope you're having a great weekend. It's one of the last before Labor Day weekend. I can't believe it's already almost here. No, I'm still buying like summer clothes, you know. Now it's all fall stuff. And in fact, it's even pumpkin spice lattes out there now. It's already Halloween and I've seen Christmas stuff out there too. What's going on? It's all about selling, isn't it? It's always about that. Speaking of, if you would like to join my shows, go over to ConnieWillis.com and you can be a part of any of my shows. Blue Rock Talk, taking you out to live investigations of creepy hotspots, hauntings, Bigfoot, Dogman, strange lights, things we don't even know. But they're out there, that's for sure. And it's the real deal. If you can't do it, but you can go, well, maybe I can go along with you live virtually. That might be kind of cool, right? So that's what it is. This is the real deal. It's very exciting, boots on the ground. And it's, we get more questions than answers along the way, but we do get the experiences. And that's what's just mind-boggling and mind-blowing and fascinating as well. So just go over to ConnieWillis.com and learn a little bit more. And I appreciate that. Got so many other people that have signed up and also signed up for the newsletter too. And remember, if you sign up for a newsletter, you're going to get one. So don't unsubscribe. Just, enjoy them. That's what you signed up for. It's always like, what? Why did you just unsubscribe? You just got one. What, there's more to come. Anyway, I wanted to say, so I just recognized this minutes ago. I had no idea. And I'm kind of bummed that I didn't know earlier, but I didn't have the TV on or anything. So, but Bob Barker passed away today at 99. 99. Wow. He was just amazing. I mean, we all grew up watching him, right? The Price is Right. And he had that microphone that was just like a stick with a little ball at the top. He had the most unique microphone than anybody else. And just always seems like such a classy guy and really got into it with the audience and the players and the contestants. And apparently some more too. But, he was really something. And I'm looking at a picture of him right now online. I had no idea. So rest in peace. And I mean, what do you say? He was amazing. And man, I'm surprised he didn't make 100. He was right there, wasn't he? Right there. Anyway, thanks for all the enjoyment he gave us. And, all the hosts that you see out there for game shows, that's one of the ones I look up to. He, Alex Trebek. And anyway, that's all fun stuff. And as a host in broadcasting it all, he got to do some of the best work out there. So just wanted to pass that on for those of you that were like me and you just found out about it. So, well, let's get on to the show. Hey, our shows kind of match up with crossing over. And of course, last night we had Dr. Jeffrey Long in and we discussed the afterlife. Well, actually, it was more about near-death experiences, but what happens on the afterlife. And tonight we're going to be doing that too. We're going to be our guest is going to be talking about how they were in heaven 3 hours and 33 minutes and how you can also be there to visit and come back. So a lot of people, like if you listened to the show last night, and I had said at one point I went through a surgery and I was talking to the anesthesiologist and I asked her if she could take me to the light and make sure, I'm there long enough to where I can pick up some psychic abilities and then come back, bring me back. I want to come back because I want to use those psychic abilities. Don't let me, like tie a rope on me and pull me back. Hey, she didn't want to talk to me anymore after that, but she didn't think it was very funny. I was being, truthful about it. So this is kind of like doing that, putting the rope around you, taking you to heaven, pulling you back. So we're gonna learn about that from our next guest. But hold on, before that, Dave the Mystic comes in later this evening, and he's going to talk about what he has learned, the most recent stuff that he's learned, months of it, but he's learned where like the ET are just everywhere in plain sight, and he's going to teach you as well how to recognize them and what's going on. So I'm excited to hear from him. He's a friend and a scientist that talks about this stuff. So I love finding the scientists that are not like all the rest of them, where they're closed up in that box and they can't get out of it, and they yell at us and they're mean to us and they think we're all crazy and nuts. Then you get these scientists that are like outside the box going, no, I've seen it. I recognize it. I know what it's about. And they do their best to, they're on our side, and I love it. I love that. So yay, he's coming up later. But before then, we're going to talk with Regan Forston. He's a clinical hypnotherapist and certified life between lives facilitator. Okay, this is from the Newton Institute. You can look that up, by the way, and you'll learn a whole lot of things with the Newton Institute. So he's one of 200 plus, I think there's 250 certified therapists. He says it's in 46 countries who have helped 65,000 clients go to heaven and come back. Right? I'm gonna ask him more of the details about that. But he's done a lot, and we'll just hear from him. I don't need to read the bio and all that kind of stuff. Let's just talk. Let's bring Regan in. Regan, nice for you. First time on Coast to Coast. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Connie. Yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight. And I think this is going to be some night. It sounds like a great show tonight. And it's interesting you talked about Bob Barker, and this morning I heard that my former wife's father died. My former father-in-law died today, and my four kids and that their grandpa died. And so I was just texting her, and we're very close still, even though we weren't married still. We're in a soul sense, we're still connected, So, and I remember she had a very, very nice father. So any of you out there that can throw a few prayers her way or just some good vibes, it'll kind of help Connie and my four daughters to go through the grieving they're going through. So,
did you say Connie? Is that your former wife's name?
Yeah, just like you, Connie.
Okay.
They always say Connies are pretty wild, so that name entails. So, I feel very comfortable with you tonight.
Well, thank you so much. On another note, I remember dating a guy at one point, and he was married before, and her name was Connie. And so he had it made just, with my name. And then I realized that it seemed like he dated a lot of people named Connie. And I thought, man, that's like the dude that always calls, hey, baby, how you doing? So.
Yeah. Something in the name, You were
you guys.
Very correct in the I don't know the exact amount now, but I think we're heading towards maybe just past around 70,000 people now, because when I wrote that bio was a year or two ago, and we're constantly in the forefront of this research into the afterlife. Michael Newton, discovered this accidentally, this process, about, back in the late 80s, I believe. And when he was getting older, he had helped over 7,000 people himself to visit the afterlife and come back. And so he started the Newton Institute and started training people in this process. And now we're continuing, as he passed on about, I guess it's been 6-7 years ago now. And so we're continuing his work. The same with Dolores Cannon, which I think I believe you've had some contact with before she passed away, and her quantum healing hypnosis technique that she has, where they have trained so many people in that, and she's passed on, and her daughter Julia is taking it over. So there's research and things being done all over the country, but most people, when I talk about this, they still their jaw drops and they go, "You mean anybody can now go to the other side and back?" And I go, "Yep, pretty much," because our success rate with this process is so fine-tuned. And there's 250 of us. I just keep track of my own success rate, but it's about 92% of the people that come to me have a successful session. Sometimes some of them require a second session because for some reason they can't relax enough, or one thing or another, it's hard for them to get into a trance-like state. But the process is so simple. It just blows me away, Connie, because people are sitting next to me, and I do this process, which is just it's like following the process of falling asleep. They just listen to my voice, and I start having them pay attention to their body as it begins to relax, and they just feel themselves little by little going down and down and down. And scientifically, if you were looking at a person's brain, like right now, our brain waves are real close together, like if you saw it on an oscilloscope or something, and we're in a beta state. And a lot of people are familiar with the stages of sleep, like when you begin to relax, your brain waves get a little further apart. It goes to alpha. A little further apart goes to theta, and then delta, you're just out for the count. Well, when people get to relax enough to just about that theta state, what I do is when I'm talking to them, because I'm communicating with them, I keep them from falling asleep. And that's when I found, this is my terminology here, but I found out my clients have a God switch, and they easily go back to or can access memories of past lives, and then access memories of being where you go between lives. Sometimes it's so interesting because people are in full awareness that I'm sitting next to them. They can hear me talking to them, but your consciousness, it kind of splits, and like half of you's there and, listening to me talk to you and having you ask the questions that you prepare ahead of time. And the other half is, you consciously know that you're, in this life, and I'm sitting next to you and you're going through this process. It's just phenomenal how this is. So I jokingly tell people sometimes this process, it activates what happens in a near-death experience, but without the death part. And they go, "Oh, thank God for that," because I think I know me growing up and me listening to people have these near-death experiences. It's like part of me goes, "God, I want to have that experience," but maybe not so much because I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to go through, almost dying or something to have it happen. This process, it just naturally, it's very safe, and it's done in a very facilitated, logical way. People have questions prepared ahead of time, like in homework. That there's the 250 of us therapists. We all have we went through the training and learned how to do it, like Dr. Newton did it, and then as they told us, eventually we kind of have our own little method, which is part us and part Dr. Newton's method. But I send people homework ahead of time. So, and they do three things to prepare for their journey. It's like preparing for, you want to go to Europe for a vacation and you call a travel guide and you tell them what you want to accomplish. So what I do is I have people write a list of questions that they want to have answered about their current life. And boy, do people have questions, because as you know, Connie, in doing the show, as we all know, that I don't think anybody has an uncomplicated life. We all have our issues. We all have roadblocks that we need to get through. And it's very difficult sometimes. And sometimes we're cursing that we're even alive because things are so difficult. So what I do is have people make a list of questions they want to have answered, because of the hundreds that I've done, I would say 99% get to request to go before counsel and get their questions answered. And we can talk a little bit about that later, what a counsel looks like and how it works and everything, because as we do this, we're researchers, all 250 of us. And then we start out by saying, too, we're not for any one particular spiritual path or belief. We're just doing the research. We're just saying, when people are in this state, this is what happens, and this is what we've got from the almost 70,000 people of recorded cases we have. And we're very curious. Like Michael Newton was one heck of a guy that he was so curious. And he would continually push the envelope of asking questions about even little things like what's heaven like, and what do people do when they're there? Does everybody reincarnate? Is there a hell over there? Or everything you can think of, he would be asking. And then once he had quite a few people have the same experience, then he would figure, okay, this is in research. If you can duplicate the same thing over and over again, or so many people have the same experience, then you start to pile up the research, and it becomes more real, instead of just something people imagine or something. Anyway, the second thing that they do is I have them write a list of the cast of characters that show up in their life's play. I like to think of it like that, like they're sitting in an audience and they're watching their life, and okay, who showed up in Act 1, who showed up in Act 2 and 3 and so forth. And I tell them to put down the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we all have our nemesis sometimes, or people that we have a hard time getting along with, and I'll tell you why that's important in a minute too. So in other words, they'll write a sentence or two, sometimes a paragraph about that particular person and the impact that that person had in their life, or how difficult they were, or how wonderful that they were. And the third thing that I do, and I'm hoping that a lot of the other Newton people eventually incorporate this. I know some of them do, but I also got certified with the quantum healing hypnosis with Dolores Cannon thing. So I've actually blended the two things together where we address people's health issues. Because when you're now, I've just found it works really good when I have people before the council, they get their questions answered. And then I'll tell the council, I'll have my client tell the council, says, well, we're here to address my client's health issues. And I'll ask them, I'll say, can my client's higher self, and I'll tell you about that's really amazing about this higher self that we all have that's in heaven already, that we actually get a hook up with or see face to face, our higher selves. I asked the council, I say, should we have the higher self do a body scan and maybe we can address these health issues? Or do you have somebody here that's more qualified for these issues? About 70% of the time, the council says, well, we have somebody here. And then in a flash, like almost in an instant, a being, an entity appears before my clients when they're in this state, and we begin to discuss the health issues. And to me, since I added this a couple years ago, I get goosebumps, because
I'm getting them, yeah.
Oh, it is so. And here's the thing that almost everybody gets they'll tell you why you have your health issues. And it's very, very revealing for people. Most of the time, it's like, in other words, usually imbalances in our body or health issues we have come from some sort of emotional issues that we haven't dealt with in our life. Maybe we've had traumas and things, or maybe we have a trouble with forgiveness, for forgiving people, or we have some self-loathing, because of bad choices we made. And a lot of people, I'm surprised how many people just don't like themselves, or they feel so ashamed of things they've done. Well, the council, in a very loving way, they'll point out, or either the council will answer the question, or the health person, the health entity that's there, and they get to find out why they have their health issues. And then I always have them ask, what can I do? Can I reverse this? And in more cases than not, most health issues, they'll tell you how to reverse it. And a lot of times it has to do with coming back and getting to work on loving yourself more, forgiving others, and being kind. And they'll tell you a lot of times how it happens. Now, because they won't interfere with you over there, they won't just come up and say, oh, I'm just going to heal you.
Yeah. Why not? Why not, Regan? Why not? Come on.
I know, it would be nice, but just boom, hey, you're cured. No,
Hey, man, we got over to them. Come on, that's enough, right?
Yeah,
Holy cow.
Be sure. Yeah, well, I've had a few cases now where the people have some health issues, and we always ask at the end, I'll say, well, is it possible for my client to have a healing? I've had in a few cases where they say, yes. And
nice.
And the very first time when I added this was meant to be, because it really got me loving this part of the process, was a woman came in, and she came in with a limp. She had a frozen hip, and so she said she'd had it for a number of months, and just was thinking about getting a cane. Well, they told her that the reason that she had that was because there was a lot of changes coming up in her life that she knew she had to make, because it's time in her life. A lot of things were going to change, and she was reluctant to do that.
Well, I am looking forward to the rest of that story. We're talking with Regan Forston, and he's talking about that he can take you to the other side, and you're in heaven, the afterlife, and you can ask the questions that you want to ask to the council that is there, and your higher self and whoever else is there. So we'll learn more about that when we come back. Connie Willis here. You're listening to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. We are talking with Regan Forston. He's past board member in charge of public engagement for the Newton Institute. So you really do talk about the Newton Institute quite well. I've heard a lot from you and learned a lot myself, and that mission is to uncover the mysteries of the afterlife. And yes. A lot of people, when they think about crossing to the other side, they say the other side. I noticed that you guys make a point to say heaven, and hey, I think that's nice.
Yeah, everybody, well, not everybody, but depending on people's spiritual beliefs, some like to call it the afterlife. I guess there's probably 10 names for wherever it is that soul goes. And some people are opposed to saying heaven because it sounds too Christian or something, that or whatever. But, folks, whatever you want to call it, it's where you get.
Yeah, hello. Too Christian. I'm so tired of all that. I'm just tired of it. Anyway, that's a whole nother show.
As you get to the gate, they probably have 50 signs that say heaven, afterlife, blah, 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 blah.
Whatever noun you want, right? Yeah. You know what? Let me ask this, and then I want to get back to that story that okay. We had to take a break on. But when you take people to the other side, whatever anybody wants to call it, is it actually where you would go if you crossed over, or is it the other side? However, it's a table of people ready to answer questions for you.
Well, I've been to the other side twice now. I went a second time and spent a couple hours there about a year and a half ago. I traded sessions, or 28
on purpose.
Newton sessions. We traded sessions, and we asked about COVID and the vaccines and things. And then when we came back, and everybody wrote up what they experienced, and then we had someone PowerPoint and put everything together, which was interesting. And while I was there, I thought, I'm going to ask some other questions. So there was both times I've been on my council, there's been a Chinese-looking guide. I call him Late C. And he just has these eyes when he looks at you. You just feel like this. You get so much love. It's just like now. My body reaction was to smile and laugh when I think of his eyes. And I said to him, Late C. He was sitting down like at a table, whatever there. And I said, this place that you're allowing us therapists to bring people to, this part of heaven here, and people are having these experiences. I said, is this it, or is there more than, because I could talk for hours and hours, because we have 6 different stations we've identified already. And if we have time, I'll explain what those are. But I said, is there more than just this right here? And he just jumped up and he shoots his hands in the air and wiggles them, and it's like, you haven't seen anything yet, So I think what this is, it's kind of like Heaven 101, as I call it.
Okay.
Because the whole purpose of this is to let people find out why they decided to be born, to find out what their mission in life is, to find out what they hope to learn and what they hope to teach other people. What do they come down here to do to make the world a better place? And that's the main focus, so that when they come back from this experience, what happens is they get to work, because now they have confirmation that their life's not an accident. Their life has meaning and purpose. They find out they're never alone, and they stop playing victim, and they start kind of getting to work and working through their issues and becoming more kind and everything. When I was on the other side, what I found out was my whole mission, or my main purpose for coming down into this body, was to learn selflessness, to be kind. And what I liked was when I said, "Well, how am I doing?" And I'm just listening, like, "Okay, how am I doing?" And they said, "We're really pleased with your progress and how you're doing." And I remember I can picture myself in front, almost cartoonish, like going, "Oh, good, oh, good," because it made me feel good that I was getting some confirmation there. And then there was a female master or elder, and she stood up and says, "Regan, I'm also happy the fact that you are learning to balance your male and your female energy." And I went, "Oh my God, that made me so happy," because if you read in my book, The 3 Hours, 33 Minutes in Heaven, in there you will see this whole process about, it's just a beautiful story on how it pointed out to me that I had negated the feminine side of myself. And for a person to be whole, you're supposed to balance both, because we're born both masculine and feminine, but one's more predominant. But that doesn't mean you negate the other part of yourself, And there was a really cool story in the book about how that all came to be. But anyway, the purpose is that they're giving people this, like a little portal to get a little bit to see, to prove to people that there is an afterlife. And, and again, you're down here to do your mission, and, and what it is. And also, too, when I was coming back from wherever this place was, because it's otherworldly a little bit. I mean, physics are not the same. They weren't the same for me over there as they are here. When I was coming back, I was getting close to the Earth. It was like I was seeing Earth from space. And as I was just kind of floating there, my guide was next to me. Rebazar is what he called himself, Rebazar. And as I'm getting close to the Earth, it just looks so beautiful from space. It's like you're in this quiet space. You look down and you see the clouds, the oceans, and everything. And then as I started getting a little bit closer, now I'm in trance, in deep hypnosis, and all of a sudden I start feeling all this emotional pain. And my guide stopped me. He says, "Whoa, just stop right here." And then he says to me, "Are you sure you want to do this work?" And I intuitively knew he meant the work I'm doing now. And I was so excited, I yelled, "Yes!" The enthusiasm that I had, it just surprised me, but I just screamed, "Yes, I want to do this work." He says, "Okay, Regan, if you're going to do this work, I'm going to tell you to do 4 things. You got to do these 4 things, or your physical body won't be able to handle all this energy, and you're going to die." So I said, "Okay, let's just talk about this for a minute, And so immediately in my consciousness, I saw an hourglass, and I saw myself seeing clients and doing this work, and sand was piling up in the top part of the hourglass, and nothing was going through the little hole there to go down to the bottom. And I realized as I was seeing that get close to the top, if this gets close to the top, then sayonara for me, And so I said, "Okay, what are the 4 things to do?" He says, "First thing you do," and for anybody listening, I think this is good, something that everybody can do to help you have a better day, to help you to be more loving and kind. And the first thing you do as you wake up is you declare yourself a vehicle for God. The prayer that I heard in my mind was, "Bless this day and those that I serve as I keep 1 foot in heaven and 1 foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission at any cost." And then he said, "The second thing you want to do is spend more time in nature." And that just makes sense to me, because I know every time I get around the ocean or I get in the redwoods or I'm hiking out there, there's this calmness that comes over me. Now, I saw myself in my mind's eye hiking. I saw myself in the ocean. Then all of a sudden, this hourglass thing, I started seeing in my mind, I started seeing sand going down to the bottom. After the prayer, sand was going down. After spending more time in nature, sand was going down. Third thing he said was, do as many random acts of kindness as you can. And in my mind, I was walking into a store. I reached down, there was a piece of trash that wasn't mine, and I just put it in the trash thing. And I saw sand going down to the bottom, And the 4th thing he says, talk to other therapists and find out, how do other therapists that have to deal with a lot of energy and stuff, how do they keep themselves grounded? And I've gotten help from a few other therapists that way, because we all have different little techniques we have to ground us. But I thought, how beautiful was that? And then that was at the end of my session. But because I know we're limited on time and everything, I want to tell you the big, when I was in the afterlife, I saw my mom, my dad, my brother who were there. They're doing just fine. I had different questions about my life and that they all answered. But the thing that sticks with me to this day that's helped me more than anything, just before he gave me the 4 things to do, I'll back it up about 10 minutes in my session. Here we are coming back. I just left the council, and I'm starting to come back. And all of a sudden, I found myself standing on a cliff, looking down, and there was clouds below. And all of a sudden, I remembered that, 40 years ago, I had a dream. It was the dream that shocked me so much that I shook myself up and woke up my wife to tell her about it 40 years ago. I was in a plane and it crashed, and I was one of the survivors. All of a sudden, there's something evil coming after us survivors, and we all ran up this mountain, and we ran, and there was this fear that something was going to devour us, going to kill us. I get right to the very edge of the cliff, and all of a sudden, like out of the clouds, it was so funny. It was like a Pillsbury
Doughboy.
And,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was coming up out of the cloud. Well, I knew instinctively that I could jump into this hand for safety, and all of a sudden, instantly, I realized I had a decision to make, that this was some kind of test, that I had to go, do I jump to safety or do I turn around and face this fear? And I remember in the dream yelling, I'm going to face this fear. And at that moment, I woke up. Now, 40 years later, here I am on that same cliff. And all of a sudden, I'm telling my facilitator this as I'm in trance. I'm saying, oh, my God, this is just where I was. It was like someone took the pause button off of that dream that started 40 years ago, because he said, my facilitator says, jump to safety. You'll be okay. And I said, no, I'm going to turn, just like before, I'm going to face my fear. And I turned around, and standing 1 inch from my nose was a man smiling at me. And he said, I forgive you. I love you.
Ooh.
And he hugged me. And then I looked behind him, and as far as I could see down this mountain were people lined up, all of them. And so I stood on that mountain, and one by one they came up, and they hugged me. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Well, it was,
I like that.
It's like, and so the very last one was this little girl. She was about 9 or 10 years old, had long black hair down to her waist. And because you're conscious of what's going on, you're in both places at once. My Regan self starts crying, and I'm thinking, what did I do to her, that would make her have to forgive me, Oh, boy. Sorry about that, but it was just So when I left there, I felt like, oh, my God, I felt like a tank was lifted off of me, that like people probably from past lives, things that I'd done to hurt other people and that everybody had come up and hugged me and said they forgave me. And I think about that almost every day. And it's funny now because it's that whole experience there seemed to take the rough edges off of me. I was doing pretty good before, but I still had some rough edges. But having this experience, I kind of smoothed out a little bit. And I was realizing when I got booked for the show, I had a little epiphany here. And I realized that now, during the day, it seems like everybody has 10 or 20 things during the day where you have a choice of being selfish or selfless. We all have those little things. Are we going to jump in line in front of somebody, or are we going to, little things like that? And I find myself beginning to be selfish a little bit, but I find that I can't go there anymore. I just can't go there anymore. And I can't tell you how good that feels. I'm not saying 100%, but I'm getting there. I realized that it had such an effect on me. And it has. I've had clients of mine that have, talked about their sessions, and they say, Regan, I did a session with you 3 years ago, and it's still resonating with me. I says it's really helped me to get through my life. Now, anyway, that was kind of the highlight of my journey there. There's some other things we could talk about another time, but wow.
Well, this is from your book, 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven.
Yes.
And where can people find that book?
Well, if they go to my site and they click on it, it'll take them to Amazon, or they can just go to Amazon and type in 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. Also, before it gets too late here, too, I just wanted to mention Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. They just passed the 1 million sales mark. I mean, people really want to know about this stuff. That's published research from Michael Newton. And Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. And there's more. He published other books other than that, but those 2 books have just passed the 1 million mark. So people want to know. I mean, we hear about heaven and all that, and you're going to go up there and play harps and and things, and you're going to find out when you get to heaven. It's like, okay, what job do you want here? I mean, it's a continuation of this life, but maybe there's maybe 3 or 4 things that's probably good to mention. Are you coming up to a break here in a second?
Hey, I've got it all in control. You just talk your little heart out. But I'm going to ask you some things because we got another hour. We're good. Oh, good. You're doing great. You're doing really good here. So 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. That's your book. You can find that on Amazon. And that is Regan Forston, you guys. And it looks like Reagan, but it's Regan. And I got to keep making myself. I had to phonetically spell it and write it down so I'd say Regan. And then the links you can go to learn more is you can go to newtoninstitute.org and you can learn a whole lot about the Newton Institute. And your website is visittheafterlife.com, correct?
Yes. Yeah. What I would mention to people, because I guess I'm talking to a heck of a lot of people now. I'm used to giving talks in front of,
no, it's just
people,
me.
40 people.
It's just me. You're just talking to me, and I'm gonna stop you. Okay. I'm going to stop you now just because we do have a break coming up. Okay. But we didn't get back to that story. We'll get back to the life-changing story when we come back. But again, you guys, so that you can learn a little bit more, it's 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. That's the name of his book. And you can go to his website, visittheafterlife.com. I know when you hear a lot of titles and you hear a lot of websites, it's like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? But you can always go to our website at coasttocoastam.com and you can find all this information too under his bio. So see, I even gave you yet another one to think about. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be able to cross over. You can actually, it's not just the book, but there are sessions. You can book a session with him to take you over into the afterlife, into heaven. And you can ask all the questions you've ever wanted to ask and find out what your purpose is, what happened here, what happened there. Now, there's other questions to ask him, of course, and also you guys can call in too. But we're going to learn a little bit more about, there's only like 250 people that offer these sessions, and it's all through Newton Institute. And, hey, now you're privy to knowing this, and you can do something yourself. Stay with us. Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM.